Alright, so in this video we're going to take a look at the ToString method. So to get an idea of what the purpose of this particular method is, we first want to go ahead and take a look at what happens whenever we want to try to access the objects that we're creating from our classes. So whenever we make something like a rectangle object, say like rect, rect2, or rect3, generally in order to get the information from it, what we've done is either just access each of the individual fields with some get methods, or maybe create our own method, say like a display type of method that will just print to the console all of that information, so that then anytime we need to access one of these, we just call that method. So typically what we see is something kind of like this. So if we want to get the length and width of our rect right here, we would say something like the length is plus rect.getLength. We'd have a period, and then we'd say the width is, also concatenate that, and then we'd have rect.getWidth. Okay, let's include word wrap to make sure this is going to fit properly. Just wrap in semicolon. Let's move this right here. Okay, so we're saying the length is, and then we just get whatever the length happens to be, and then we say the width is, and then whatever the width happens to be. And I've left off units. I'll leave that up to your imagination. But generally speaking, whenever we want to see one of the objects, we have to create a sentence kind of like this, or some structure kind of like this for it, so that we can actually make sense out of the fields that we're getting. Of course, if I don't make my own method to do this, then we'd have to do this again for rect2 and rect3, and we'd have to keep doing this for every one of the individual rectangle objects that we make. So how about instead of doing this, we just call the object itself and just see what information that'll print out to us. So let's say that instead we're going to do something like system.out.println, and we want to just put in, say, the rectangle, just rect. So we're going to go ahead and comment out all these extra print statements that I have, and we're going to print just this. Okay, so go over here and we'll compile this, and then we'll run it, and this is the information that we get. So we get the name of the class that it corresponds to, we have the @ symbol, and then we have this sort of random string of numbers and the letter E. So what exactly is this? Well, this is effectively just a hashtag or a hash code that relates to this particular object of the rectangle class that we just made. So unfortunately, this is not really the information that we wanted. In the vast majority of cases, this is not very useful to us. The only real reason that we might be concerned with this is if we needed to be able to compare this against maybe some other hash code to see if we've got the same object in two different contexts, but we're not really trying to do that here. All we want to do is just see the length and the width of a particular rectangle object. So we need to come up with a way to access that information rather than getting this whenever we call a particular object of the rectangle class. And to do that, we can actually implement what is known as the ToString method. So we're going to have a public string, and this is going to be called ToString. And right here, we're going to insert a return statement that will return a string related to this, the objects of this class. So essentially the way this works is ToString is a class that is available for, or is a method that is available for any of the classes that we implement. Essentially the behavior of it is that whenever we insert the object, the name of the object, into a print statement, it will automatically and implicitly call this ToString method. So right now, this thing that we're getting right here, that's what's being printed out because of the way that the ToString method is initially implemented. So essentially what we're going to do is just kind of override that behavior. So we're going to go ahead and create our own version of the ToString method. So right here, what I want to do is return, I'm going to use the format method of the string class, and I'm going to be using that to access this statement properly format this statement right here. So we're going to go ahead and grab that. We'll put that right here. Go ahead and remove our extra spacing. And then for this portion, we're going to go ahead and instead of doing all of this, we'll replace this with a format specifier. So we're going to say %f, let's say to 2 decimal places, so %.2f for the length. And then we'll do %.2f for the width. So just go ahead and use a format specifier to get the length and width, format them to 2 decimal places. And then right here, we're going to go ahead and access that length and width. And because of the fact that we're within the scope of the rectangle class itself, we can make use out of our this reference variable. So we'll say this.length. That will be what takes the place of this first format specifier. And then this.width. That will take the place of our second format specifier. Okay. So we'll go ahead and save that, and then we'll compile and run this. And so now when we want to try to print out the rectangle object, what is instead going to print to the console is this statement right here. So we'll compile this, and we'll run it, and now we see that we get the length as 1.0 and the width is 1.0. Okay. Alternatively, while we can just rely on it being implicitly called, if for some reason you feel that you need to be able to actually see the method being called, you can also explicitly put in the ToString method here. You don't have to do this, as I've just shown. It will be implicitly called. But if we do this, we compile it, and we run it, we see that we still get the exact same output. Okay. Additionally, I'll go ahead and test this once more with, say, rect2. Instead of using the noargs constructor, maybe I'll go ahead and actually add my own custom length and width to this. So we do something like 10 for the length and 5 for the width. I'm going to do a second print statement right here. On this one, we're going to grab rect2. For this one, I'm going to leave off this explicit call. We're just going to implicitly call the ToString method here. So we'll save that. We'll compile this. We'll run it. And we can see now we've got the length is 1 and the width is 1 for our first rectangle object, and the length is 10 and the width is 5 for our second rectangle object. Okay. Okay, so this will wrap up a little bit that I wanted to talk about for the ToString method. Going into the next videos, we're going to look at the equals and the copy methods.